Terrific.
All right, everybody. Well, with us today we have Mike Moran. He's the author of the textbook used for my course here at Full Sail, Search Engine Marketing, Inc. Just wanted to start off, Mike, if you could, and talk about some of your background. I know you spent an extensive amount of time at IBM and currently with Conversion. So if you want to talk a little bit about your background, and then we'll talk about your books and then get into some questions, if you don't mind.
Sure, Jake. I did spend quite a bit of time at IBM, 30 years, but who's counting? I worked a number of different capacities in IBM. I spent a lot of time in IBM research. I also worked at IBM.com for 8 years, and I have a pretty extensive background in search and text analytics technology. I retired from IBM as what they call a distinguished engineer, which is an executive level technical position. I held jobs as a product manager, a development manager, research manager, all sorts of different areas. I did a lot of work in product development as well as my stint at IBM.com. I have a couple of books out. One of them is the one you guys are using for the course, Search Engine Marketing, Inc. I also have a book on internet marketing called Do It Wrong Quickly. And I do a lot of public speaking. I have a daily blog called Biznology that's at MikeMoran.com. I do serve as chief strategist for Conversion, which is a leading digital marketing consultancy that focuses on social media. And I also have private clients that I work with in areas outside of marketing. And I'm very happy to be here today.
And just so you know on your end, Mike, I know you had to call in. I'll get you the archive so you can see, but we have the images of the books and slides here, so everyone on the WIMBA session can see all of the slides and images and everything as well, okay?
That's fantastic. Thank you.
All right, so in getting started, I just wanted to get your sense on where you see the current state of search and what you think some of the biggest trends are moving forward, whether that's in mobile or more localized, geographically targeted results, real-time results, and things like that.
I think it's hard to pick which one's going to be the biggest. I think that mobile, for sure, is going to be an extremely important area of search, and I would say indeed already is. Local, I think, will be very important as well, and in many ways is already. If you look at how local search is evolving, one of the things that I think is that mobile and local will be coming together. And I think in many ways the things that will change the most about search are not any of these things individually, but the way that they work together. I think that I'd also add to the list personalization, which a few years ago was just an experiment, but now is a pretty significant part of search, where if you search, you might get different results than if I search, even if we search for the exact same keywords. I think that you're going to see increasing amounts of social search, where what people get in their search is personalized not just by things that Google or Bing know about them, but it's also personalized by what they know about the other people in their network. So if you look at the recent +1 initiative that Google has come out with, that's an example of kind of adding more feedback from social into search. I think Bing has done even more, where they have a deal with Facebook where they can bring up results that are things that were interesting to other people among your Facebook friends. And so I think that you're going to see a lot more of this kind of personalization. So if you kind of pull everything together between mobile and local and personalization and social, I think that the ramifications are enormous, because what it tends to do is it brings us very far away from the old paradigm of everybody who types in a certain keyword gets the same thing, whether it's they get different things because of mobile or local, because they're in different places than the other people, or because of some kind of personalization because Google knows things that you've done before, or because it understands what your network of friends have done before. Those are all very, very big changes to what used to be, in retrospect, a fairly simple search operation that now has applied all sorts of different technologies in it to change what people get.
And with Facebook's abilities, do you see this becoming a thing that is complementary or additive to search, or is this a game changer that's attempted to eliminate Google and search altogether and bring that all inside of social network like Facebook?
Well, I think we always like to say that the new thing will kill the old thing, and it never quite happens. I mean, TV didn't kill movies or radio, right? It just changed the way that they work, right? I mean, it used to be that all of the kinds of situation comedies and dramas that we see on TV were things that were on the radio. And when TV came in, then all those things went away from radio. But it didn't kill radio. It changed radio to be something that was useful in situations where you could not watch something on TV. So, and these things will morph as well. So, I mean, a lot of people said that when Twitter came in that it was going to kill blogs, but it hasn't. It's changed the way blogs are used. It used to be that a lot of things that people do on Twitter today where they're just commenting on someone else's post, that used to be things that people did in blogs. They'd write a blog post about someone else's post, but they don't do that anymore. They just tweet about it now. And so it didn't kill blogging, but it reduced the use of blogging to things that blogging is perfect for, and the things that maybe Twitter is better at that we used to use blogs for, we now use Twitter for. And so I would argue that as each of these things comes along, what's really happening is it's splintering the usage. So every time a new one comes in, it takes a chunk out of the old one, but the old one usually still has some situations where it works much better than whatever the new thing was. But there were many things that we might have used the old technology for that now the new technology does better, and so those things move away. So, even though you see these kind of gargantuan corporate battles between, Microsoft versus Google versus Facebook, versus Twitter, those are things that are playing out in corporate boardrooms. In terms of the way people use technology, I would argue that each one of them has a place, and that as it solidifies its place, it does cannibalize time that people used to spend with other things, but I don't think any of them really die as long as they still have a usefulness on their own.
Well, and also takes away the time that people had traditionally to work exclusively on the website. And that's really what I wanted to lead towards. What do you think the importance of integrating social networking into the actual marketing plan itself? A lot of companies will just put a logo with a link to their Twitter account or their Facebook account on there and think, okay, we've integrated social marketing, but they really haven't done much of anything to incentivize those people to come and actually integrate and communicate with them on an ongoing basis. What's your feeling on the importance of integrating that right into their online marketing plan?
Well, I think that when you look at any kind of marketing tactic, and social media can be just another marketing tactic, just like everything else. I know that it's the flavor of the month and everybody's excited about it, and I am too. But with each of these things, you need to focus on what the goals are for your marketing plan, apart from social media or any particular tactic. So if you understand what you're trying to do in marketing, that will help you understand how you will do it with any tactic. So if your goal in marketing is that you have a direct marketing operation and you are focused on sales, then you need to understand how you're going to have social media send leads to your site that will then convert, whether they convert online or offline, and how you're going to track which social properties those leads came from so you can calculate your return on investment. If, on the other hand, your marketing goal is to just produce awareness, because that, you say you're Coca-Cola, your job in marketing is not to get someone to click and buy a Coke on an e-commerce site, right? You have a different goal for what your marketing is. Then you have to measure the brand awareness impact that social media has versus the brand awareness that television, radio, print, or any other kind of advertising has. And so it all comes back to what your goals are for marketing. If you understand what your goals are, then you can measure the impact on those goals that social media has just as you can with anything else. But there are some situations in which those kinds of tactics don't make any sense. I mean, I would argue that there's very little reason for Coca-Cola to be on LinkedIn. I don't see how that's going to help them, right? But on the other hand, if Accenture thought that it should have its consultants on LinkedIn, that would be a pretty smart move, I think. And so you have to analyze each different community, each different content area, each different type of social site, understand what it can be good for and what maybe it's not good for, and then understand how that fits into your marketing strategy. And if you do that, then obviously integrating it into your plan makes a lot of sense. But I think before you integrate it into your plan, you have to integrate it into your strategy.
And, a lot of SEO, especially e-commerce-based sites, a lot of it comes down to identifying the right sets of keyword phrases that are going to drive the qualified traffic that's going to convert well for your site. I wanted to get your ideas on what some of your favorite tools and processes are to identify these keywords.
Well, I think that the first place to start it is in understanding what it is that you're trying to accomplish when you do keyword research. A lot of times people have the mistaken idea that they're trying to get as many searchers as possible to their site, which is not really the case, because even though that is the goal of a lot of other undifferentiated advertising and marketing. I mean, when people are usually looking for reach, as they call it, in advertising, where they want to buy the commercial on the television show that has the highest ratings or the print magazine that has the widest circulation. I mean, that's typically what people try to do. And obviously they look at demographics and all sorts of ways of making sure that they're getting the right target market. But in the end, they would almost always vote for more of their target market than less. And search kind of isn't that kind of animal, because you don't actually control the targeting. The searcher controls the targeting, because the search keyword is actually your first level of market segmentation. What people type in is the thing that controls who you're getting. And so you can appeal differently to someone who types in the word hotel than someone who types in the word lodging, because the people typing in lodging are choosing that less common word precisely because they're not interested in a hotel. They want a bed and breakfast. They want something else. And so by understanding that what you're really doing is picking market segments, you don't just gravitate to the ones that have the highest number of searches associated with them. What you want to gravitate to are the ones that have the best match between those people and the people who buy your products. And so you need the best match between your content and your products and services and those search keywords. And so the way you identify them is you start out by just brainstorming all the different things that you think people might be able to use. You can use keyword tools from the search engines themselves, or there are private ones that you can purchase if you have the budget for it, that can analyze that can take those brainstormed words you have and show you how many people type them in. It can show you variations on those keywords where, it'll take one word you gave it and give you a 3-word keyword phrase that might be much more pointed, specific, and closer to what it is that you actually sell than that one broad word was. And you can also look and analyze the referrals that you get to your site today from search to see which kinds of things people are coming to your site for. You can also look at, if you have a site search engine, you can look at the things that people are typing in there. But, generally, I think people focus too much on the initial phase of identifying the keywords, and they focus too little on the daily, iterative feedback that you get by looking at how those words are converting for you. So what you want to do in the end is to be focused on the keywords that convert for you, not the ones that have the most searches with them, not even the ones that give you the most traffic, but the ones that give you the most conversions, the ones that give you the most, in the end, sales. And so that is where, to me, it's the process of refining what keywords you're focused on that goes on and on and on over time that's more important than picking those words in the beginning.
Yeah, and a lot of times, especially with clients, they get over zealous about where they rank and things of this nature. From a monitoring and tracking standpoint, I know it's going to be different depending on the industry and the site in general, but what do you think some of the most things to track are? Obviously conversions, and then secondly, do you think that a free analytics solution like a Google Analytics is sufficient for the majority of sites? I'm particularly interested with you coming from a background of such a large company like IBM.
I believe that Google Analytics would work just fine for most companies. In general, I don't think the problem with analytics is that people don't have good enough technology. I think the problem is that people don't actually do the human analysis of what the data is telling them to make decisions about what to do. So, they're happy to go off and redesign their website, and then, then the next month they print out all the reports of how much traffic they got and this and that. And I think there are very few companies that actually focus on making decisions based on what the analytics tells them. I mean, some of the most successful companies do. I mean, if you look at Amazon.com, they can change a font at breakfast, and they know by lunchtime whether it was a mistake or not, because they're paying that close attention to what the differences are in the numbers before and after every change they make. And to me, there's precious little of that goes on in most companies. Most of the time, they're spending all their time focusing on reporting and saying, well, we got more traffic, or we got more conversions, or they got more whatever, without focusing on what the actions were that they took that actually got us where we are. And to me, that's the critical thing. The critical thing isn't the analytics tool. The critical thing is identifying the people and the questions that you have and the decision points that you have, and using the data to help you make better decisions. I mean, that's a big part of what my book, Do It Wrong Quickly, is all about. It's about understanding how you can take a shot at something, look at the analytics, and then decide whether you went in the right direction or not. And if you went in the wrong direction, you change it. You do it wrong quickly, and then you fix it. If you were going in the right direction, then you try and do more of that. And to me, that kind of process is the one that is in many ways the hardest for traditional marketers to learn, because they've grown up in marketing where television advertising and print advertising and all sorts of other highly expensive and risky processes of marketing have made them very risk averse. And on the internet, it's so cheap to be able to change what you're doing day in and day out that they're not in the mode of letting their customers tell them what it is that they ought to be doing.
And along these same lines, we need to be constantly monitoring what our competitors are doing. Do you have any tips or favorite processes and things of the sort to keep tabs on your competitors?
I think that one of the things that people do very little of is they don't actually go to their competitor sites and look at them. I think that, as silly as that sounds, the clients I work with, very few of them spend a lot of time on their competitor site. I think I spend more time on their competitor site than they do a lot of the time, and that I think is a big area that wasn't available 10, 20 years ago, where it was pretty hard for you to keep track of what your competitor's doing. Whereas now, whatever they're doing, they just splash right out on their website. They look at it through social media. I mean, you can just set up some Google alerts and see what they're doing nowadays. And another, asked about tools before. I mean, one of the tools that you can use to look at competitors, especially for search optimization, is something called SpyFu, which is a very interesting very interesting site. It's SPYFU, and what it does is it helps people to see what their competitors are doing, so they can look at what, for example, which keywords they're focused on. They can also get some idea of how successful different companies are at different areas of both SEO and paid search. And I think that that's one that, if people haven't looked at that, that can be a very interesting and revealing look at your competition.
Yeah, I use that quite a bit, and we use that in the course for a few things as well. What about, I know it always comes back to, unfortunately, the amount, quality, and relevance of the incoming links to our website's pages. It's so important, especially in Google's ranking algorithm. Do you have any feelings on that, or best practices and things with regard to link building, or do you like to let everything happen very naturally by creating good content?
I think the latter is the best approach for most companies. I mean, I won't say that there's nobody out there that can make a living out of fooling Google, but chances are that it's nobody who reads my books. So, the thing that is really important is not just coming up with something that will make the search engine's ranking algorithm like your content, which you can approach by trying to reverse engineer what the search engines are looking for, and that's what a lot of very smart people do. Some of them are people who use techniques that are against the search engine's terms of service, so-called black hat SEO techniques, but there are a lot of people that focus on things that aren't against the terms of service, but they work really well. I mean, I remember a few years ago, all the rage was in what they called page sculpting, or link sculpting, some people called it, and it had to do with how you changed the links within your own website to pass page rank to some pages and not others, to try and help them rank in search. And there were people who spent enormous amounts of time on this, but at the time I was pretty dubious about it as an idea, because to me, anything that helps the searcher and helps Google and helps the search marketer, that's a good technique. Anything that doesn't help all three eventually is not going to work. So link sculpting didn't help anybody but the search marketer. Typical black hat techniques just help the search marketer. They don't help the searcher. They don't help the search engines. And so eventually they won't work. And in fact, even as important as links are, if link farms and other kinds of spurious linking tricks start to become so prevalent and they work so well to game the search engines that the search results are being corrupted, then Google and Bing will stop looking at links. They just will. They'll find other ways of deciding what a quality page is. Maybe they'll use metrics about which pages are visited more than others. Maybe they will look at social media activity. There's all sorts of things that they can do. Links are not magical. The only reason search engines use links is because it is the surrogate for telling them the difference between a high quality and a low quality page that they couldn't figure out by just looking at the words on the page. So the assumption is that pages that have a lot of links to them, and especially links from quality places, those are better pages than the ones that have those same words on the page, same words in the title, same words all through it, but they have 3 links from whodiditandran.com. And so because that has worked, that's why the search engines use links. But the minute that stops working, they're going to stop using them. And so focusing on links for link's sake doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Focusing on quality content will attract links. It'll also attract social media activity. It'll attract page views. I mean, actually being quality content is likely to give you all of the same outcome as if you fake your links, right? Because being quality an outcome will be the kind of thing that causes people to link to you, but it'll cause all those other things as well. So regardless of what the search engines use as their measure of quality, whether it's links or anything else, providing high quality content is always going to be the way to go in the long run.
Right, and I always tell my students you never want to put yourself in a position where you can wake up one morning and the majority of your search traffic is gone because Google has updated their algorithm and de-emphasized links, for example, in this example. What about with regards to website architecture? What are some of the most common mistakes that you find web developers making that are hurting their search rankings? With regards to the actual structure of the URL, dynamic content, using Flash, things like that.
Well, I mean, I've spent enough time working with large company clients that I've seen all of those things. And so the one that's the biggest mistake is whichever one you're making. So the problem with this stuff is that you can get 99 out of 100 right, and the one you got wrong can screw the whole thing up. And so it's pretty important that you have a webmaster that understands these kinds of things so that they can check it, or that you hire a consultant to do that. That's what big companies ought to do. The thing that I've always found amazing is that small companies almost never have these problems. They're using some standard tool. They're using something that's pretty simple to use. And years ago, it used to be that you had to be very, very careful to pick the right tool in order to not get yourself in these boxes. But in recent years, I'd say most of the tools have gotten to the point where they work pretty well. I mean, I'd say there's still a few tools that you really do have to focus on. Like, I know WordPress still delivers those ridiculous-looking URLs with numbers in them. I mean, Drupal does the same thing. So it's not like you don't have to know anything anymore. But what you need to know, I think, if you're using a standard way of maintaining your website, is a lot less than what you had to know, say, 5 or 10 years ago. But for large companies where they have really spent an awful lot of money to try and achieve a certain look or a certain feel to their site, they go off the rails on this kind of stuff all the time. And often they've built their own tools because they could afford to, and that is often the kiss of death, because the people who have built the tools very rarely understand what kind of implications what they've done had for search. So it's hard to pick out one of the, I guess if I pick one of them that was the most common, I'd say it's URL problems. I'd say that's the thing that I see the most. But honestly, I see it less than I saw it a few years ago. So I think that all of these problems are probably less problematic for companies than they were even 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, I get a lot of clients that are looking to move to a new URL or doing a complete redesign of the site. Can you touch on what some of those common pitfalls would be of moving content every single time you change your URL? You're kind of starting from scratch with regard to the age or maybe the incoming links that's acquired over time?
Yeah, one of the ways of determining whether a site is high quality, which it makes sense, but in some sense is unfair, is the age of the domain. So the longer that domain has been out there, the more trustworthy it seems to be. And that's because spammers have taken to grabbing new domains and throwing up lots of spurious content. And then so the search engines have just noticed that there's a correlation between the age of the domain and it's less likely to be something that's been done by a black hat SEO person. But I would argue that that's something that if you have the right content, you'll overcome that, fairly quickly. I think that a bigger issue is when people redo their URL structure, even if they keep the same domain. I find that it's rare that you see people pull off the redirects that they need to do properly. I think that, for the uninitiated, there's a thing in a web server called a redirect where it's kind of like a change of address card at the post office. So if you put in the old URL, the web server says, oh, I know that one's been changed to this, and it sends you to the right page. Well, there are several different ways of doing redirects, and search engines only like a couple of them because many of them are things that only work for browsers. They don't work for the search engine spider programs that come to inspect the content. And so often those redirects are done poorly, but even in situations where they're done perfectly, I think there's a real lack of appreciation for how valuable it is to have those links coming to your site. And if you've got a page that has hundreds or thousands of links to it, and you change the URL for that page, if you do the redirect properly, then the search engines will continue to give that page credit. But unless over time many or all of those links get changed to point to the new one, eventually the search engines stop giving it credit, because it doesn't make any sense for somebody to be getting credit for something 3 years later after when the link is to the page as it was 3 years ago. It's actually a 3-year-old vote. And the more times you change the URL, the more it's obvious to the search engines how those votes have aged. And the aging votes aren't as valuable as the new ones.
Well, last question before I open it up to Q&A from the audience. Just wanted to get your feedback on what do you think our graduates, as far as, I know you're concentrating in social media in that area. It sounds like quite a bit now. What do you think is going to be the hottest field moving forward as far as an area of concentration, whether it be in mobile or concentrating on local search or what have you?
I guess that if I were in that position, I'd be focusing not so much on what I thought would be hot. I'd be focusing on the thing that I really get passionate about. So if there's an area that you just feel like, this is my thing, I'm excited about this is something I really, really want to do, yes, you should pay attention to make sure that there are some jobs there, but if you really apply yourself to the thing you're the most excited about, I think you're going to do the best job. And anything in this digital marketing space is a growth industry. I mean, even things that people now don't talk about very much, paid search, it's still growing enormously. Direct email marketing, it's still growing enormously. And so I would say that the thing that you're most excited about, you're going to do the best job at. And I wouldn't try and shoehorn myself into something that didn't really feel that interesting just because it's hot, because you're not going to do as good a job at it, because you're not going to be as excited about it. You're not going to be as interested in learning about it and keeping up. And the truth is that something else will be hot 6 months from now anyway. So, mostly I think you need to stay agile. You need to be learning, and you need to be focused on things that are not the technical details of how anything works right now. The more you absorb the broader principles of marketing, the more you understand how to communicate what you know in your specialty to people who don't understand your specialty. Those softer skills are just as important as the skills of knowing exactly how the latest and greatest marketing technique works on Groupon or Foursquare or any of the other hot and exciting things that are popping up right now.
I appreciate it. We have about 25 minutes left here. We're going to open it up for Q&A using the hand raise function here inside of Wimba. We have about 4 people lined up so far. So, Josh, go ahead with your question.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's a particular content management system that seems to work better for SEO than any other one, or if it's more about just being aware of what you're doing.
I think it's the latter. I mean, I wish I could just say, it's this one, but I guess I'd argue that I don't think that how well a content management system works with SEO should be your primary reason to choose it anyway. I think there's too many other important details of content management that, as long as you can configure and tweak the content management system so it does a good job on SEO, I think that you should pick it for other reasons. I mean, Drupal has this fairly well-deserved reputation for not being terribly good for SEO, but I'm in the midst of a project of transforming my company's website to Drupal, and we're just making sure we put in the right modules and we're adjusting the configuration so that it does a good job. And the reason is because there's a lot of things about Drupal that are excellent. It's a very strong content management system. It's easy for non-technical people to use. It's free. It has a very wide community of people who are modifying it and improving it all the time. I mean, there's so many good things about Drupal that the fact that it isn't as good as some other CMSs in SEO is not a reason to me to stay away from it. You just have to be smart about how you do it.
Thomas, go ahead.
Hey, how you doing? I've been helping a lot of different small businesses to use the internet to grow their business using search engine optimization and social media. And one of the things that we've been doing since the beginning was helping to do some link building. But I do see that that's not a great long-term strategy because there is some manipulation, like you talked about in your talk today, of the reverse engineering of the algorithms. And I do understand that content is king, but sometimes it's hard for me to get the small business owner to understand the importance of content and also to take off their hat of being good at what they do and really spending time to create that content. So my question is, what's your suggestion on how I can approach these small business owners and besides video and blogging? I mean, we help them with some videos, but how to just get them to create regular content on a regular basis so that they can be relevant going into the future?
Well, I guess I have a few reactions as you were speaking, and so I'll kind of randomly throw them back at you. The first thing I'd say is that anybody who tells you that doing X or Y or Z is too hard for them or it's too much work for them, I think you need to take that with a grain of salt, because honestly, I know a lot of small business owners. There isn't anybody that I know that works harder than small business owners. So they're not afraid of hard work. They're not afraid of doing difficult things. And in fact, the things that they'd have to do for internet marketing to work, I would bet are a lot less difficult than other things that they've pulled off in their careers. So when people tell you things like that, it's not that they don't want to do it, or that there's something else going on here. When someone tells you that they don't have time for something, what they're really telling you is that they deem this to be a lower priority than the things that they are spending time on. So if I don't have time to post to my blog every week, if I don't have time to change the offers on the home page of my website, if I don't have time to tweet 3 or 4 times a day, what they're really telling you is that all the other things they're doing with their time is more important than that. And so it's not really a game of you trying to figure out how can I help them to make more time, or how can I help them to do this more easily. It's more a game of how do you convince them that this is a more important way of spending their time than what else they're working on. And I have to tell you, the way to do that is not by explaining to them how important websites are, or social media, or SEO. They don't care, because everybody who's trying to get a piece of their time is telling them how important things are. What would really get their attention is if you could show them. If you could show them what kind of business they get for doing these things. And so a lot of the times I don't think the small business owner is even ready for a lot of these techniques, because they still don't even know why they have a website. Because as far as they are concerned, if a nickel were to roll in under the door based on them having a website, they'd be the last ones to know about it. So the first thing to me that you have to do is to show them a very specific way that their website is making money for them. So if you could put in simple stuff like a coupon that they could print out and bring into the store that would prove to the business owner that the people went to the website and that's why they came into the store, then all of a sudden you're going to get them very interested in, okay, how can I get more people to come to the website? Because I see these coupons walking into the store and I'm making business that I wasn't going to make otherwise. And so you have to figure out some way of tying whatever they're doing online to the cash register. And once you do that, then you'll find no shortage of interest for that small business owner. You won't have any problem convincing him or her to spend the time on the things that they need to do because they see how it directly affects their bottom line. And to me, that works with small businesses, it works with large businesses, but it's the step that I most often see people skip. They're so focused on convincing everybody how important search is, and it's because we all believe that it's really important. But the problem is that this isn't a religion, it's a business. And so whatever we believe in is fine, but the thing that the people you're talking to believe in is cash. They really believe in money. And so if you can show them how this is going to make them money, you will never have the problem of getting their interest again. They will be bothering you. They'll be so interested.
Okay, thank you.
Andres, go ahead.
Hello?
Hi.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Andres. We can hear you.
Perhaps he can't hear us.
All right. Who's next in the queue here? Go ahead with your question.
Hello? Hello. This is Andres. I'm sorry. Hi, Mike. I'd like to know what's your take on content farms approach used by companies like AOL and content generation, I think. What will be the impact for advertisers and search engines, and if that really the future of online media?
So I think when we use the term content farms, the first thing that we need to do is to really differentiate between two very different kinds of usage of content. The original meaning for a content farm was that there were black hat SEO types who were going to sites, scraping paragraphs here and there that had juicy keywords in them, slapping them all together into something that looked like it had been translated from its original Japanese and thrown up on a site just to try and get search rankings. And those were the original content farms. So I don't think that, I mean, there may be very smart people that are fooling the search engines and getting traffic to sites, and perhaps they're selling advertising or they're getting people to click on affiliate ads or something, and they're making a living doing that. And God bless them, but I don't think that's the future of anything. And I believe, no way to know, but my belief is that when you read about all the things that Google's done the last few months to try to change its algorithm to eliminate content farms, it's those really low quality sites that they're going after. They're, if you're thinking about, you brought up AOL, if you look at Demand Media, if you look at the companies that people now call content farms, where they're hiring writers and they're not paying them all that much, and they're churning out content on certain subjects, I don't know that just because that's how they're doing it, that automatically makes it low quality. Could it be low quality? Yes. If it is low quality, then you would think that it would not attract a whole bunch of links. You would think that it wouldn't be passed around in social media. You would think that over time it wouldn't work all that well, unless you also believe that these folks at these companies are also engaging in all sorts of other black hat techniques to drive fake links to the site and other things, which I've never seen them accused of. To me, what they're doing is something that's perfectly within the rules, and if they've come up with a more economical way of creating quality content, more power to them. If, on the other hand, they've come up with an economical way of creating low quality content, I don't think it's going to work for very long. And so I think really, the way the content is created doesn't tell you what its quality is. And so I think there's been an awful lot of pixels expended about this issue the last few months, but to me, the proof's in the pudding. If you have good content, no matter how you got it created, I think it's going to be rewarded. And if you don't, I think it won't. And it doesn't matter whether you've spent lots and lots of money on very professional writers and done everything, quote, the right way. If your content is crap, then it's not really going to matter how much money you spent to make it. So I just want to be really careful when we talk about content farms to talk about the fact that I don't necessarily think that the brush that people paint content farms with is the right one. I think it's been overly broad. And, you know, it was interesting the other day, Demand Media just came out with its earnings report, and its earnings are actually unaffected by the Google change, which I don't know if, I mean, you can't really say whether they're unaffected or not, because perhaps they would have doubled in size had it not been for that, right? But they're claiming that they're not being affected very much by the Google algorithm change. And so, you know, I'll take them at their word. And but I don't know, it's hard to say whether this is the future of content creation. I would say that if people think that content is of low quality because people are paid very little to create it, then I want to know why they're spending all their time looking at Wikipedia, where people are paid nothing to create that content. So to me, the way you create content is not as important as the result. If the content's good, it's good. It doesn't matter how you created it. If it's not, it's not. And it doesn't matter how you created that either.
Okay, who's logged in as ORUN here? Go ahead with your question.
Hi. Yeah, that's actually my name. My name's Oren.
Sorry about that, Warren. Go ahead.
Don't worry about it. Hi, Mike. I'd like to know what your prognosis is when it comes to two things on the internet. The first one is social sites that are, I'd say, dramatically different from the ones that you mentioned, Facebook and Twitter. I'd like to know if you think that sites, social sharing sites, stumble upon Reddit, Dig, Delicious, if they will influence search in any way, because they do seem to drive quite a bit of traffic. And in addition to that, I'd like to know what you think and when will there be changes to search algorithms that are based on Web 3.0 and the semantic web and like web ontologies and that kind of stuff.
Okay, so let's take them in order, Oren. The first question, for all we know, those sites already affect search. I mean, it would seem to me that they do. I mean, if for no other reason than those social bookmarking sites are the ones that are most likely to have links into content. And in fact, the place that they affect search the most is probably with breaking news. So if you look at the difference between a search page now and a few years ago, it used to be you'd have to go to some separate page to find Google News. And basically it just was scraping whatever was being put up on mainstream media sites. And that's not the way search works anymore. Today, you'll see all sorts of news information that pops to the top of almost any search result. And those social bookmarking sites are definitely part of what makes that kind of thing take off, if for no other reason than they influence what people tweet about. And so if you look at how Bing is using Facebook, if you look at how all the search engines are starting to use the Twitter fire hose to look at every tweet that comes through and analyze which things are breaking, those social bookmarking sites, to me, have every bit as much chance of having an impact as you know, commensurate with their volume. I mean, obviously Twitter has way more volume than they do, so it will have a bigger impact, but I think they have a lot of influence. In terms of semantic web, I don't know that the impact of the semantic web is going to be more in the ranking algorithm. My suspicion is that it will be more about how we think about finding information. I would say that, you know, as somebody who has spent most of his career in text analytics, I think that we're a bit further away from the semantic web than some people wish. I think that there's still a lot of nuance in human language that's pretty difficult for computers to ascertain. I mean, I spend a lot of time working on social media listening tools for Conversion. And when we look at things like when somebody tweets something, they say, for example, I spent my whole lunch hour online at Wells Fargo. There aren't any words in there that tell a computer that was bad, but we all know it was bad. And so sometimes there's no information that really helps a computer understand what the semantics mean. And so because there's an awful lot of contextual information about the world that you have to have in order to understand that. So if you think about how that works, there's, you would have to understand that it's bad to wait online in a bank for an hour. And so if you don't know that, and the computer likely wouldn't know that, you have all sorts of problems. I mean, you also have things like, if I say that my cell phone is small, I'm happy. If I say that my hotel room is small, I'm sad. And it's the same word. And so there's so much context that has to go into it that I think we're pretty far off from the semantic web. And I think that when it does get here, it's actually going to be more interesting in terms of how it will dynamically link information together so that people can do better browsing rather than what its impact will be on search. I actually think that expecting people to tag information won't scale, and that it will end up just being a surrogate, the way bookmarking sites and the way, and to some extent, anchor text in links work. So it'll be signals to search engines, but I don't think it's going to. I think that the real changes to search engines is going to come from text analytics technology that use those signals to verify conclusions that it's drawing by looking at patterns that exist anyway.
Diana, that was your question?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. Thanks for taking my question, first of all. But also, I'm just wondering about social media optimization. And I've had a lot of clients ask to get Facebook followers increased and Twitter's or tweets and followers on Twitter increased. And I know that there are definitely some ways to go about purchasing such things. The quality, however, varies. And I guess my real question is, as there are SEO techniques that are black hat, it seems like there's an increasing interest in what may be considered some SMO techniques that are black hat. And I'm wondering if you know anything about what Facebook and what Twitter, perceives as good content, and how people are ranked or pulled in sites like LinkedIn and Facebook, in terms of who comes up first and why. Is it a numbers game? Is it based on your, is it personalized ranking from, based on who you're pulling up? Anything you could give me that would give me some more insight on that would be appreciated.
Okay. Well, I know that all of the social networks, their biggest problem right now is social spam. And they have been taken by surprise by it because they never expected that text synthesis technology would be good enough that robots could actually synthesize ersatz personalities. So, I mean, a lot of the people that are following you are probably bots. They're not real people. They're personas that have been created. I know people who actually orchestrate conversations between their fake personas to make them look real. And it's a growing problem. And so there's a lot of black hat that's out there, but I would say that as you're advising clients, I think you just want to stay away from that stuff. I think eventually they're going to find what the patterns are for that, and they're going to get rid of them. And so it's better to create the kind of content that makes people want to follow you or makes them want to fan you or like you. And so to me, it comes back to the same kinds of things that we talked about. It's always high-quality content. It's always giving people a reason to spend their precious time with you. And I wouldn't worry too much about what the ranking factors are that make somebody come up number one. What I would worry about is how do you engage with the right people so that you're getting getting sales, or that you're getting brand awareness, or you're getting whatever the goal is for your marketing. That's what you focus on. And if it turns out that you do such a great job of that you end up popping up to the top of the results and you get even more from it, then great. But if you focus on all these technical things to get you to the top, you're going to miss the big thing that actually gets you the business.
Mike, we'll leave that as the last question. It's 3 o'clock here. We greatly appreciate it. It means a great deal to me in Full Sail and to the students, more than you'll know. We have up here your website, your Twitter and Facebook accounts, and just wanted to send a special thanks to you taking time out of your day to be with us today. I will wrap this up and shoot you an email with a link to view the slides and sessions in the session. Since you were on the phone and didn't get to go through them. Okay, but we greatly appreciate your time.
Thank you, Jake, and to all the students. If you've got any questions, if you can send me messages on Twitter or Facebook. If you're like me and you're old and you use email, then you can do that too. I'm Mike at MikeMoran.com. I'm happy to answer whatever questions didn't have a chance to answer today. And thanks, Jake, for the opportunity, and I wish you all luck.
All right, thanks, Mike. Talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.